My name is Chyanna Destinee, and I broke the internet.
This is the show about the people who create, amplify, and influence our culture and how they do it. Want to capture lightning in the bottle? Want your content to spread like wildfire? I'm Ben Kaplan, and let's break the internet. Welcome to Break the Internet. I'm chatting with Chyanna Antonio, who goes by Chyanna Destinee on TikTok. And it's great to chat with you. I think it's a really inspirational story of how something that can just be a hobby or an interest can really gather steam fast. So, Shy, take me through it. It's been an eventful past year for you. You worked in machine learning. You had a job in tech. You dabbled in TikTok. You're one of the people caught in a layoff, and suddenly you got a little bit more serious in May 2023. So take us through your story. How did you come to have a popular TikTok account?
Yeah, definitely. So I created my TikTok account really just to watch videos. And I used to really enjoy watching like home organization videos, Sunday reset videos, get ready with me's. And I thought to myself in around December of 2022, if I enjoy watching this content, why can't I create it for fun? And, you know, it wouldn't hurt to have a side hustle with the way the economy was looking. And so, I started posting my own videos on TikTok. And it was just for fun at first, just my friends were following me. And I was still working my 9 to 5 in tech. And my account was growing pretty slowly. And then unfortunately, in the middle of 2023, I ended up getting impacted by the layoffs at my company. And I had a very demanding career. I had a really loaded schedule in college, went straight into my master's degree, went straight into a super aggressive career with long hours. I was a bit burnt out, and I just wanted to take a break from my 9 to 5 and take a step back. So I thought, let me see what I can do with content. Let's see if this fun thing I was just doing on the side to make a couple extra bucks and to have a creative outlet, let's see where I can go with it. So ever since I was laid off from my tech job, I was seeing what I could do with TikTok and just focusing on growing those platforms, and then eventually branching out to.
And I was going to ask you, because how did you come to how much time were you sort of spending on this dabbling? Like, you were watching some Sunday reset videos, you were kind of dabbling. Were you actually creating things and treating it like kind of a serious hobby at that point? And then how did that change after the layoff? So what was the difference like?
Yeah, I think the difference was the amount of time I was spending on it, the amount of time I had available to spend on it. So I wasn't necessarily posting super consistently when I was in my 9 to 5. And it was just sort of more of a hobby. And I also really wasn't focused on any of the strategy or any of the quality behind the content, or where I could go with it, having any sort of a vision for longevity. I was just thinking in the now and not what would this content look like in a year or 2 years or 5 years. So I think that's the biggest difference. I was probably spending, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week doing content when I was still in my 9 to 5. And then when I wasn't anymore, I was definitely doing it full time. Like, I would be emailing brands all day long. My video editing quality went up. The amount of time I was spending in front of the camera went up. So I really just started to push out more content.
Well, and in some ways, you've been at this for not that long, not even a year, seriously yet. How did you, when you started wanting to sort of kick this up a notch, and in some ways you're living the dream, because a lot of people say I'd love to get out of my current job and be able to actually afford to live, but based on creating content. How did you start understanding strategy, treating it more serious, getting better at it? What were the things you did that you would recommend to others that made a difference when you were kind of upping your game?
I think one of the most overlooked things you can do as a creator is to engage with the content that you enjoy watching and the content that you are also creating. Because my biggest supporters when I was first starting out my accounts were the other content creators who were making similar content to me. And just naturally, by going and interacting with their content and commenting on their things, they're inevitably going to come and show you love and show you support as well. So I think my strategy was just learning from the other people who were making similar content to me, seeing what worked for them, seeing what their audience was commenting in their comment section and what kind of comment they were getting of what their audience wanted to see, seeing what types of videos they post that did well, didn't do well, and then don't copy and paste that, but use it as inspiration to see what people are interested in seeing, and then engage with their content so that they can engage with your content, and then some of their audience might come over to you.
Okay, and take us through the type of content you produce. You have a few regular kind of features you do, and also how the content has evolved. So you were liking those kind of Sunday reset type videos. You were doing things like that. What is sort of the nature of your content for people that aren't familiar with following you?
Yeah. So I'm a pretty organized person. I love to follow routine. I love to be cleaning my home. So even prior to starting TikTok, I was doing a lot of home organization projects. I was cleaning weekly on Sundays, doing my Sunday reset routine. And I enjoyed watching those videos. So I thought I could make them for myself too. So one of my most popular videos on my platform is my Sunday reset video. I normally do it to the 9 to 5 song by Dolly Parton, and people really seem to enjoy that.
And what is it about that? For those of you who don't, I mean, a lot of people obviously know these videos, but if you're watching or listening and you don't, it's kind of like you're watching someone gotta clean up their house, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it's like lots of like quick edits and things you can see. What is the appeal of that, do you think? Why did you watch it? Why do you think people watch those kind of videos when it doesn't sound like in real life you want to watch someone clean their house?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And it's funny because when I tell other people what kind of content I make, one of the comments I get from them is, "Oh, you put your dishes on the internet." And I'm like, yeah, that is weird. But I think one of the biggest draws of watching that type of content is, one of the biggest comments I get is, "This just inspired me to get up and clean," or "This just told me to get up and stop being lazy and get off TikTok and clean my home." So I think one, motivation. People like to watch content of other people doing something because of that kind of like group think. If someone is cleaning their home on Sundays, maybe I should also be cleaning my home on Sundays. And then I also think there's like this satisfaction aspect of watching something be dirty and then all of a sudden get clean and organized. But I think one of the biggest things about the Sunday reset, because typically it's fast-paced clips that are synced to music, it's very satisfying to kind of watch a video where what you're watching syncs up to what you're hearing. I think that's one of the biggest draws to those types of videos as well.
Okay, so the same way that if you're watching like a music video that you can kind of like, that is cut to give you kind of a sense of feeling, it's almost like, I don't know, it's something with cleaning. It's like a kind of a sense of disorder, but sort of syncing it to the music and this catchy tune and the cuts are there. It kind of gives it a sense of order, which is sort of like emotionally satisfying as you watch someone bring order to their life.
Definitely.
Well, and so that is one type of content. Is that the focus when you started out? Is that what you did and you kind of doubled down on that? Or what else were you creating? What else were you making? Because you probably can't do Monday reset and Tuesday reset and Wednesday reset and, might get a little tiresome after that.
Right. Nobody can clean that much. But,
okay.
So I definitely was trying to focus more on like general lifestyle, figure out exactly what type of content was working for me. When I first started out, I was very nervous to be in front of the camera. I didn't really want to do vlog styles. I didn't want to talk to the camera.
I think when we've talked before, you're a natural introvert, right? You like,
yes, I am.
Do you find it like draining to do all of this, or is it no, because you can kind of film this by yourself? You're not like doing it in front of a studio audience and so it's fine? Or does it seem like it's counter to your natural personality?
I think at first it felt very unnatural. And I would be overthinking everything as I was in front of the camera and doing it. And I used to joke with my friends that I put on this influencer voice. I'm sure we might have heard that on TikTok before, that influencers have this influencer voice that's different from the way they actually talk in real life. And that's very true. And I realized that I was doing that. And I had to train myself to speak normally and to act normally in front of the camera because it didn't come naturally to me. But I think, here we are almost a year later, and I feel a lot more comfortable in front of the camera. I do think that I speak and act pretty normally when the camera's turned on. But yeah, when I first started, I definitely did not want to do any type of content that involved me talking and involved me being in front of the camera. So I had to figure out other ways to get people engaged in my content. And I think I turned to very heavily editing my videos to have like a sort of fun, engaging edit, so that if people weren't being engaged in my content through my personality, they were being engaged in my content through the high quality editing on the videos I was making.
So what kind of videos are those? I mean, I've seen some of your like tutorial Tuesday type videos. Is that what you mean? I mean, you do a lot of like now like editing tips and tricks on how you create content. But were you doing that at the beginning, or was it other types of content that you were doing?
Yeah, so I wasn't doing the tutorial Tuesday. That was kind of born out of other creators constantly asking me, how did you do this? How did you do this edit? Can you please give us a tutorial? And so I thought, might as well not gatekeep. I'm here. I'm learning on the internet. I'm learning as I go too. I don't have any formal training in video editing or anything like that. So I figured I might as well just share the knowledge that I'm getting as well and be the person that I wish I had when I was trying to figure this stuff out. So the Tutorial Tuesday is fairly new, but that was born out of my kind of consistent delivery on high quality editing. And my editing really kicked into high gear around that May mark when I ended up leaving my 9 to 5. But even before then, I still was very focused on video editing. I just couldn't spend as much time on it as I would have wanted to. But even in the recipe videos I would share, or, videos of me unboxing something or doing my makeup, I was still kind of focused on those short, fast clips from different angles, kind of syncing to that upbeat music that kind of draws people into the video.
And do you think, I mean, have over time, over this past, almost a year, do you find yourself more focusing content and limiting it because you start seeing a lot of people on the show? We'll talk to different, creators who are like, yeah, I was doing all this stuff and then I figured out my audience wanted this, and they'll tell you what they want, and because you can see in the numbers right away and focus. Or have you felt like you could have just done organization or just done recipes or something like that, but you have more of a lifestyle approach? It's broader. How have you got to weigh, should I do more things because not everyone wants to see me do a Sunday reset, or should I focus things and make sure people know when they watch a video from Shy, they know exactly what they're going to get?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think that's the debate, right? Should you niche down or should you be broad? Because it's a trade-off. And I think at first I was kind of feeling pressure to niche down. That's what a lot of the social media gurus tell you that you need to do. But I was worried that if I niche down, I would miss out on brand opportunities, or I would be kind of pigeonholed into a certain style of content. And then what if my living situation changed and I had to move and I couldn't make cleaning videos in the same way anymore, or, something like that. So I was really adamant about the fact that I wanted to remain broader and be a general lifestyle influencer instead of niching down. I think where I niched down is in my video editing style. And I think there are certain ways that I've done that, like doing my Sunday resets every Sunday, using the same sound with kind of the same style of editing. People will know that it's me, even if they don't see my name attached to that video. And just knowing that if they're seeing these high quality creative edits, my name is the name that's going to pop into their head with that.
What do you mean, by the way, if you were going to explain the difference between high quality edits and just average editing? And do you mean it's a lot of razzle dazzle? I've seen you, do a tutorial on how you jump into a frame and how do you film jumping in, and something kind of fancy? Or is it something else that's less like a special effect and more of just something intrinsic? What does high quality editing mean?
I think high quality editing means putting thought and intention behind the production of your content. I think, the pendulum always swings in terms of the type of content people like to consume. And I think in 2020, we saw the rise of people wanted that authentic, I just put my phone down and I started talking and I started recording. And then you started to see the rise of all these normal people becoming celebrities overnight because they would blow up on TikTok. And I think that now in 2024, the pendulum's kind of swinging the other way. And people want to see that influencers are taking time and putting pride behind their craft and work behind their craft, and that not anyone can just become rich and famous overnight for doing minimal work. I think people want to see, and whether or not this is true, or valid, I think people want to see influencers quote unquote deserve the success that they have. And so that means putting intention and quality behind what you're doing. And so that's kind of what I mean by high quality editing. I think that can look different for everyone. If you are somebody that has like more fun, goofy videos, maybe some of those more like gimmicky edits that I show how to do might be a good option. But if you're somebody who does like makeup content, maybe just, you know, weaving in some higher quality shots, some ways to showcase the products in a higher quality, more engaging way. I think sometimes with editing, you don't always have to do the big flashy thing. You can do a lot of little, small tweaks to enhance your content.
And I've always felt like with content, the main thing you have to do is like kind of keep the feeling going, the feeling that you have, so you don't pull outside of the content. And I don't know if you agree with this, Shy, or not, but I always like, it's like when you're watching a movie and you're like really in the movie, right? You're not thinking about anything else, but like, oh my God, like I'm so nervous. What's going to happen to this character? You're caught. And then you get like some really unrealistic special effect, like, oh my God, that was so fake. You know, she jumped out of an airplane and landed on a horse. And then suddenly you're out of it, right? You're not focused. You're not in the movie anymore. You're like, oh, that was pretty cheesy. So I was like, it's like, how do you use editing to keep that throughput of that emotion, that story? You're in it. You're not looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just finding what's authentic to your content. So I think because I've kind of gotten this reputation for having these creative edits, I think that it is authentic to my content to be kind of putting those outlandish edits throughout my content. But, you know, there's time and a place. So, you know, if I'm just doing kind of like a day in my life in Washington, D.C. and I'm running around the city, maybe I don't want to be flying in and out of the frame because that's not very relevant to that video. So I think it's kind of knowing when edits are enhancing your content versus distracting from the message you're trying to give.
So and how long do you spend, like take us through like a typical Sunday reset video? How long do you spend filming it? And how long do you spend editing it? Just to give people a sense, because sometimes it can be daunting, particularly if you're new to this, to sort of say like, wow, it looks like she spent so much time on that.
Yeah, I will say I've definitely gotten quicker. So now I kind of like know the angles of my apartment and I know exactly where the tripod needs to sit. So it's been a lot more efficient as I've gotten some practice under my belt. But it typically takes me the same amount of time to film as it does to clean. So typically on a regular Sunday reset, it's going to take me anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours to clean, depending on how many rooms I choose to do and how deep I clean my apartment. I don't always show every room that I clean. So I really only show like the aesthetic parts of my apartment. I don't typically show the other parts that I'm cleaning. And then to edit, it depends on how many sort of intricate edits I'm doing. But my Sunday reset is typically my longest cleaning video that I edit. So it does take the longest. It takes anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to edit, depending on how many intricate edits I'm doing.
Are you actually like focused on cleaning your apartment, or are you focused on creating content? Meaning like, I could imagine like, I've got to look good for, you know, instead of just scrubbing this, I've got to look good scrubbing this, or I've got to get the angle right, you know? And I was like, oh gosh, how would I do that? It's almost like the analogy is like the person who goes to the gym, and there's some people at the gym who are like there to work out. And there's some people who are like trying to look good while they're working out at the gym. You know who those people are, right? So
yeah.
So how do you do it? Is it about cleaning, or is it about kind of making content that looks good?
It's definitely about cleaning. I think that when I first started, I was super hyper aware of how I looked at every video and every angle. And I would go reshoot things. So I was like, that's not the best angle of me. And then I had to come to the realization that this is not like me showing an outfit. This is not me showing off my makeup or like showing off my physique or whatever. It's literally me like vacuuming my couch. I don't need to look like a supermodel while I do that. So now I will be like no makeup, hair tied up, and sweatpants. But in the beginning, I definitely was hyper aware of kind of trying to get that perfect angle. But I think it's more authentic. Nobody is looking 110% while they're cleaning their apartments.
Okay, sure. Well, take me through it. You mentioned one more question on content, and then I want to kind of talk about your trajectory. But on content, you mentioned like thinking about the longevity of content. You've mentioned that before to me. What does that mean? How is it different to think about content in sort of like the here and now versus what this might reflect 3 years from now? What does that mean to think about content longevity?
Yeah, this kind of takes me back to where I lost my train of thought earlier.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why I didn't want to niche down was because, and this might mean that my accounts grow slower and that I don't see as rapid growth, but I think it will be well worth it in the long run. I want my audience to be following me for me. And I want them, if tomorrow I all of a sudden decided to start making content about like fixing up cars, which I've never spoken about before, they would absolutely love it because I'm doing it. And I think that's the goal, is you have to get your audience to be rooting for you and not just the content that you're making. And so I think that kind of ties into the longevity of content, because you have to be thinking about, if TikTok disappears in this year, is my audience going to follow me to Instagram? Is my audience going to follow me to YouTube? You have to think about, if your lifestyle drastically changes tomorrow, what's going to happen? And you also have to be thinking about, what do I want this to look like as a career for 3 years? Because content creation is so new as a career in the way that it is right now. We don't really have people to look to that have been in this career for a super long time. So you have to be thinking ahead of like, is it sustainable to just post on one social media platform forever and just make all of my money with brand deals? And I think the answer to that is no, it's not sustainable. And you have to look to some of these more seasoned celebrities and see the ways that they've transformed from being a content creator to being an entrepreneur in general. And someone I always like to talk about with this is Chyanna. I used to grow up watching her on YouTube, following her makeup tutorials. And now she has curated this community where she doesn't even really do makeup that much anymore, but she has this luxury lifestyle. She owns a candle brand, and she's kind of a household name. And she's who we think of when we think of successful content creators. So I think you have to be looking forward enough to know that you can't just post the same content you're posting today. You can't just continue to post that forever and expect that this is going to be something that you can be successful at and do in the long term. You're going to have to think ahead and think of how you're going to adapt.
Well, and what is an example, just to get specific, about something that, like, I don't know, you might have done, but with this longevity mindset, you're not going to create this type of content anymore? Or the opposite, which is you are creating something now that you might not create otherwise if you weren't sort of thinking of the long term in mind.
Yeah, I think a really great example of this, and it's something that I made the decision not to do when I first started creating content, was making content that's centered around a very specific thing in my life that might be temporary. And for me, when I first started on TikTok, the most popular videos I was seeing on my timeline is day in the life of a 25-year-old working in tech, day in the life of, somebody working in tech in New York. And people were filming these videos of what they did throughout their day. And some of these people who were lawyers or working in tech or whatever they may have been, who were making content around that, when they got big enough that they could quit their full-time jobs and do content full-time, you saw their audience kind of turn on them, because now they're not relatable anymore. They're not a normal person working a normal job anymore. And their audience kind of turned on them and didn't want to see the content they were putting out anymore, because they were there for the specific routine that they were feeding their audience. So I know that, the job that you're in could be temporary. I didn't want to kind of niche myself down to just that. So if you build your audience around you and who you are as a person, that means when your interests change or your lifestyle changes, your audience is still going to be there.
Other moral of the story is, don't feature temporary boyfriends and girlfriends in your content. Make sure this is for the long haul before you're having too many people show up cleaning dishes. Who's that person cleaning dishes in the park? How did that change from last week? Wait a sec. Yes.
Exactly. Because people will get in your business if you let them. So if you don't want people in it, you just got to keep it separate.
Well, and how do you deal with being a natural introvert? How do you deal with, is the comments mostly positive? You're not making super controversial content or things like that, but is it mostly, or how do you deal with like the negative side? Is anyone being real critical, said something mean and ruin your day? Because we're all human.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. I really don't make controversial content, but I remember one time I posted a video of this new toothbrush I had gotten, and the comments were insane. And people were very upset that I got this new toothbrush. I don't know what it was, but I did kind of throw I did throw a controversial clip. I did throw a controversial clip in the video where I showed myself throwing my old toothbrush in the trash. I didn't actually throw it away, but I did it for the content clip. And it was very controversial. People were very upset that I threw my old toothbrush away to make room for the new one.
But does any of that affect you, or do you just have the approach that, hey, if people are talking, at least people are talking, whatever it is, and I have a thick skin, and that's part of like the game. That's part of the cost of being a creator.
I think when I was younger, stuff like that might have affected me. I've gotten comments about my appearance before, or like whatever it may be, or like somebody doesn't like my outfit, or I get a lot of comments about like kind of like condescending, shamey comments about the way I take care of my animals. I have a dog and a cat. They're very loved and very spoiled, but people like to give unsolicited advice all the time and tell you how to take care of the things in your life. But I think when I was younger, that might have been something I dwelled upon, but I feel like I'm confident enough in, my real life. I only show a small snippet online, but, I have a good community of family and friends. I have a good job. So those comments kind of don't really bother me, because at the end of the day, when I'm going to sleep, I'm not thinking about them, but they're thinking about me. So,
well, and you had a couple different milestones in the past year. I mean, one was in January, passing 100,000 followers on TikTok, and it continues to grow. It seems like even faster pace. Two, in February, your first kind of I think being part of a sort of a major program for up and comers, brand partnerships with Hooray and Walmart, and tell us about that, because sometimes people don't realize that there are these programs to support. It kind of feels like as a creator, you're kind of on your own in like the Wild West just to try to figure things out. But I know you're part of the Walmart and Hooray Black and Unlimited Digital Development Program. What is that? And are there other programs to tap into for people who, want to feel like they're not in this alone?
Yeah, for sure. So the Black and Unlimited Digital Development Program that I'm a part of is hosted by Hooray and Walmart. Hooray is Issa Rae's production company, for those who don't know. And it's essentially a brand deal with Walmart and Hooray. And basically what they wanted to do is they wanted to take up and coming Black creators and give them the space to, one, get payment from brands, payment that we often don't get, but that we definitely deserve. And then, give us the tools to succeed as content creators. So applying us with like cameras and audio equipment, giving us connections in the industry. They had us come out to LA for a weekend where we got to meet a lot of different creatives in LA, and just kind of starting to build that community. Because like you mentioned, sometimes being a content creator, it can feel very isolating and lonely, especially if you're making content like me, where my content, 85% of my content is filmed within my apartment. So I don't really have a lot of social interaction when it comes to my content, but community and being in community with other content creators and other creatives in the industry is so important. And so searching for these programs, whether it's a program for Black creators or women creators or creators in the LA area or creators in the DC area, trying to find a community of creators that you can be a part of, whether formally or informally. So some companies like Walmart, like Hooray, will have specific programs. So make sure you're following companies, talking to other creators, trying to see what official programs there are. But then unofficially, just don't be afraid to ask other creators if they want to create a group chat, if they want to talk, if they want to look over your content. I have my neighbor actually is also a content creator. So her and I will have strategy sessions and just talk about our content with each other. So it really helps just to have a community of content creators that you can talk to and kind of tap into.
Well, and you're 26 years old now. You recently, I know, went back very recently, I think last week, to a full-time job, which is what you're trained in, related to tech and machine learning. Was that a difficult decision? Because things are taken off as a creator. Did you feel like you could do both? What is your advice to others who get some measure of success and then are like, hey, I might be able to sustain myself doing this? Do I go back to a job? Is this what I want to be doing, creating content my whole life? I don't know. Like, how do you just evaluate the whole thing? And what was part of your decision to kind of go back to a 9-to-5 job? Yeah,
I think my advice is that you just shouldn't let people tell you that you can't do something. So I got told so often that I can't do both. I can't have like a flourishing social media career, and I can't work in my 9 to 5 field as a machine learning engineer and have a great career there. And to that, I say, yes, I can, and I will, and you can watch me do it. Because I think I have training in being a machine learning. I have a master's degree. I've spent, a big part of my professional career so far making a name for myself in that space. And it is something in it I enjoy. It is something I'm passionate about. Having technical literacy in our youth and with our adult population too is so important. AI/ML is not going anywhere, and I'm very passionate about making sure that people are educated in that. But that goes hand in hand with my content too. And I hope one day to be able to merge the two and be able to kind of talk more freely about both. But as of right now, I just want to pursue both. I think if you do want to pursue content creation full time, you should do that. Just know that you might need to be finding other ways to sustain yourself, because it is difficult financially to be a content creator. Your checks aren't always coming consistently. Brands don't always pay you on time. I think there's the behind the scenes of content creation that I wasn't really aware of in terms of the finances that I definitely had to get up to speed in very quickly. But something that I'm very excited about going back into a 9 to 5 is that I will never have to compromise my creativity or my morals, because I feel like I need to sustain myself now. So when it comes to content, I get to take the brand deals that I want to take, that I believe in, with companies that align with my morals and what I want to share with my audience, because I don't have to be worrying about when my next check is coming. So I think that's a huge privilege, and it is something to think about if you want to go into content full time, because in the long run, you do not want to sell out for a check.
Well, and how are you balancing just like the workload of having a full-time job, creating this other content? Before, when you were doing this, you were doing the 10 to 15 hours a week, but you're a lot further along now. Do you have a strategy for that, or are you just figuring out how you're able to do both?
I do have a strategy. So I got very organized with my content. I would recommend every creator do this. I've created a content calendar. So I plan out every month in advance. So I already have my April content calendar ready to go, where I know when I'm going to film, when I'm going to edit, and when I'm going to post. And then I would also recommend batching your content as much as possible. This is something I could get better at, because a lot of my content, I kind of want it to be a little bit in the moment, but as much as
you're saying batching, like you're going to, in one session on a Sunday, you're going to knock out a few things for the week, let's say.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I mean by batching. Have one day that's going to be your filming day, or 2 days that are going to be your filming days, and then maybe one day where you spend it all on editing. I think you just have to be very disciplined, because you're your only accountability when it comes to content creation, unless you have a team, but you typically don't when you're just starting out. I don't have a team. It's just me. So, I wake up in the morning and I do a couple hours of content, log on to my 9 to 5. And then in the evening, I'll typically do a couple more hours of content stuff. And you really just have to be organized and know exactly what you're doing and when you're going to do it. But it is doable. I think you also, another part of that is, yes, you do need to be organized. Yes, you do need to be responsible and accountable, but you also need to give yourself grace. So if I miss a day of posting, I can't beat myself up about it. Or if, you don't get to post, you don't get to respond to all your comments, or you don't get to engage with a post in the way you wanted to, you just kind of have to give yourself the grace of, I'm doing the best I can with what I have right now. So I think eventually you'll get into a rhythm. And I feel like, I'm starting to get into a rhythm, and I hope that it'll get easier as I go along.
Well, and do you worry about, because you are TikTok based, you're also now trying to grow your Instagram and YouTube, but that's the early days. Do you worry about just TikTok in the news, and are other creators worrying now about, is TikTok going to be banned? Could they, am I going to get caught up in, geopolitical maneuverings between countries is somehow going to affect my, part of my livelihood?
So yes, I am worried. Yes, other creators are worried, and rightfully so. A lot of creators make a living on the app. A lot of small businesses make a living on the app. And I think that it's unfortunate that it's being kind of used as this tool in this like political narrative, because so many people rely on TikTok. I've learned so much on TikTok. I get a lot of my news from TikTok. So yes, it is a little bit worrisome, but that's why you have to kind of have that longevity of thinking. Number one, and thinking about it has to go beyond TikTok, right? Because, think of the people who were on Vine before Vine kind of ended. And then they kind of make the people who made the jump from Vine to TikTok or Musically when they did are some of the most successful creators on the app. So you always have to be thinking of what does this look like in 5 years? And then the second thing I would say to that is creators shouldn't feel like they can't do anything in terms of this TikTok ban. Because we can, and you just have to make sure that you're getting involved, that you're speaking up, and that you're talking about it. It's not completely out of your hands. I think there are plenty of ways in which we can mobilize to try to make sure that our voices are being heard. So I think that everybody should kind of do research into how they can do that if this is something that's important to you.
And finally, where do you see all of this heading? Let's say, it's like an eternity and sort of like internet time, but like 3 to 5 years. Where would you like to be in that point, both in terms of your social media creation, influencer presence, just in life and your career? Where do you see this all going? What would be the dream for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as I've kind of talked about this longevity of my content, I haven't really talked about where I see my content going. I think something that I've been very intentional about trying to do in the past couple months as my account has gained more traction. I've been trying to listen to what people are telling me I do well and tap into that. So something people have been telling me is that my editing skills are very creative and are very good and that they want to learn from me. I started the Tutorial Tuesday series and I coming up have some events to do some master classes for companies and brands and some speaking engagements on how you can use editing as a tool in your storytelling and in your social media content strategy. And so I think where I see myself going with my content is kind of becoming that expert and that subject matter expert in how you can edit a video in a way that tells a compelling story for your brand and for your brand voice. So I definitely see myself still posting my life on social media and connecting with my audience, but definitely kind of shifting to become more of a subject matter expert, if you will, in kind of that video editing and content strategy side of things. So I definitely kind of want to divert to a bit more of a, subject matter expert in that realm. That people will come to me and brands will come to me if they need expertise in that area.
And final question is, what is we spent a lot of time talking about, those who want to have a similar journey to you to become content creators, to maybe become full-time content creators. But what is we have other people in our audience who are just, folks that don't want a profession in content creation, but they wouldn't mind having a bit more, engagement or, making a piece of content go viral or blow up or something like that, even though they don't want this as a profession. What is your advice for all of those folks about just like how to make your typical post that you're doing for your friends something that maybe could catch on or maybe could explode?
That's a great question.
How can they break the internet?
You have to put out content that people want to comment on. So in one way or the other, put out something that people want to comment on, that people want to share with their friends. So that's the biggest driver of kind of breaking the internet is when you see viral videos, either it's because it was shared and now you see it, or it's because there was a ton of comments on it. And so, I've heard that some creators will like purposely put a spelling mistake in their caption on screen so that people will comment and correct them because that's engagement. So, there's plenty of ways to do that. You can ask your audience a question. You can leave out information that that people will ask about it. So maybe you're using, something on your hair and you leave out what brand it's from so that people ask about it. So there's plenty of ways to do that. But the biggest thing is you have to do something that people want to interact with, and you have to figure out what that means for you in your video. Some people do it with controversy. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can do it however you want.
Well, there you go. And now you've heard it from Shy that your struggles over the years with good spelling now has a purpose because you're going to get more comments and more engagement. Congratulations to you for not being a perfect speller. In any event, thank you so much for joining us. Chyanna Antonio, you can follow her at Chyanna Destinee. She goes by Shy. What a journey you've been on, multi-talented person. You seem like a left brain and right brain person at the same time, which means you're analytical and creative. That's really cool. Thank you for joining us on Break the Internet, and best wishes for continued success.
Thank you for having me.
This episode was brought to you by Top Thought Leader. Go viral with TTL.
Check out all our shows at topthoughtleader.com.
Like and subscribe.